south on 3 Points Road.
I wanted to do a little follow-up with this. You remember years ago, I mean, we're talking about almost a decade ago, there was this cop named Robert George, and he abused this woman. This was for a parking violation, guys. This was for a parking violation. This officer, Robert George here, threw Chelsea Doolittle, and he outweighed her by twice. You know, she was half his size. Threw her to the ground. She was in handcuffs. We're going to look at this, but apparently they eventually, this is 2013 case. It's 2022, 9 years, almost a decade later, he finally goes to prison. Former Hickory officer resentenced to 3 years in prison in 2013 case of excessive force on handcuffed woman. Says a former, let me get this all in here for you so you can see it. Former Hickory police officer was sentenced to 3 years in prison after he was found guilty 3 years ago of using excessive force against a handcuffed woman in 2013. Former officer Robert George will now serve 36 months in federal prison with a year of supervised probation. And we're going to take a look at the incident. I'm not going to play the entire video, but I will give you the link so that you can look at it yourself, because what ends up happening is when I play these videos, and here's the video right here, we'll watch him drive up to the police station with her in the back of the car and stuff, but I'm not going to show you the violent part of it. But what happens is when I end up showing videos like this, they get age restricted. And then when you get an age restriction, the viewership just drops off like crazy. And people really need to see this kind of stuff, because this is one of the things that we often talk about, is that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. If the problem with the world is that there are evil people in the world, then one of the last things you want to do is give some of these psychopathic evil people a uniform badge and a gun and a complete monopoly on force, violence, and brutality. And there you go. I showed it. So what I'm going to do is I'll blur this out when the video gets done rendering. Says the incident took place in 2013 when officers saw a car parked improperly. All this violence and brutality and evil happened because two guys with uniforms, with costumes, and it wasn't even Halloween, saw that a car was parked improperly. What is wrong with our world? What is wrong with these people? Chelsea Doolittle was in the car at the time and admitted she'd been drinking, but was not drinking while driving. She also admitted that she used foul language when asked for a registration. Hey, that's protected free speech, right? Don't wear your feelings on your sleeve, Robert George, but he just couldn't help himself. Why? Because he's a psychopath. The indictment against Robert George, the former officer, says he pulled her from the patrol car and slammed her against the ground. Doolittle's injuries sustained from the incident later required oral surgery to repair. According to indictments, the incident caused, quote, serious bodily injury. And I think she got $400,000 out of the deal. I think the city had to cough up $400,000 because of Robert George's violent ways. The pushing of two of the victim's bottom teeth requiring surgery by an oral surgeon to correct the injury. George was also accused of lying about what happened to the department, saying she fell. Well, wow, imagine my shock when I heard that a law enforcement officer lied. Guys, they're trained to lie so that they can extract data from you, so they can pin you on more charges. He was charged with using excessive force against a female arrestee and obstructing justice. George was arrested 6 years later and fired from the department. Records show the state filed charges against George, but those were dropped when federal indictments were returned. According to this news affiliate, George faced 70 to 87 months in prison after the 2019 conviction, but was only given 4 years of probation instead. If that was you or me, how do you think we would be treated? I think we know the answer to that question. George was previously sentenced to a term of probation by a different U.S. District Court judge, but the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals reversed and remanded the case for resentencing. Listen to what this person says right here, this judge. A person's constitutional rights don't cease to exist during or after an arrest, said U.S. Attorney Dina King of the Western District of North Carolina. Quote, a federal jury rightfully decided that former police sergeant, he was a sergeant, guys. He was a sergeant. This guy knew better. He had people under him answering to him. A stream can never rise higher than its source. Good job, Officer George. Used excessive force against an individual in his custody, and today's resentencing reflects the seriousness of his unlawful conduct. How about it just unlawful? He was clearly acting as a criminal. A woman who weighed 100 pounds and he was like 240 or something like that, has her hands cuffed with torture cuffs behind her back. He takes her from the car and just throws her down in the parking lot like a rag doll. What does that guy do when the doors are closed and the lights are off and no cameras are rolling? People like that need to be investigated. The police will investigate the police and get back with you and let you know that the police have actually committed no wrongdoing. As federal prosecutors, we have a duty to protect everyone's civil rights. Well, you're not doing it too well. And to investigate and prosecute federal law violations involving police misconduct, we owe it to the people living in the Western District and to the thousands of law enforcement officers who serve and protect the public with honor and dedication. Name one. Name one cop. I'll give you one example of how I know not one cop is out there to serve and protect the public with honor and dedication. The drug war. The war on drugs is not a war on drugs. It's a war on people. It's not drugs that go to jail. It's not drugs that get handcuffed. It's not drugs that get kidnapped. It's people. And if you're a law enforcer and you're enforcing the drug law and the drug war, then you're helping to initiate the war on people. You could stop it, but you don't. It's not a crime to transfer drugs and money, even though the law says it's against the law and violators will be prosecuted. Police officers who violently and unlawfully assault people in their custody, cause severe physical injuries and trauma, are not above the law and will be held accountable, they say. Somebody forgot to get the memo. Here's a little bit more detail. Right here, in November 2013, Chelsea Doolittle was parked improperly in downtown Hickory and admitted to drinking, but not while driving. When officers asked for registration, she says that she did use foul language. As a result, Doolittle was charged with a misdemeanor disorderly conduct. Of course, got to pin that on him because you got to increase the coffers of the state and show people that you can flex your power and your might as a badged law enforcement officer. And 2 counts of resisting an officer, one which was later dropped. She was taken into custody in an indictment against George. She claims the officer pulled her out of the patrol car and slammed her to the pavement, causing severe facial injuries and later requiring surgery by an oral surgeon. There was a mugshot. I couldn't find it, though. There was a mugshot. She looked horrible. Her face was all bloodied up. George was fired from his job. The 15-year-old veteran. Come on, WBTV. The 15-year veteran faced more than 10 years in prison. And of course, we know what he got charged with. But here's another example of, unless it was caught on camera, nothing would ever happen because they'll take the police's word against yours any day of the week. So leave your thoughts about this, and I'll see you guys in the next video.